We have stereotypes about everything and everyone. That's just how our brains work. We like shortcuts and efficiency, but sometimes this means we overlook important information. This isn't just the case with gender stereotypes. This is true whether we're discussing stereotypes about race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, age, disability, and so on. But obviously in this class our focus is on gender stereotypes, and we have lots of them. And they're hard to get away from. We see stereotypes about gender in the media all the time. How many sitcoms or romantic comedy movies are almost entirely based on gender stereotypes? So many of the books we read and the movies and TV shows we watch reinforce these stereotypes that it's hard to remember sometimes that not all stereotypes apply to everyone. Yes, there's often a kernel of truth to a stereotype. That is, at some point it may have been somewhat true, but perhaps it isn't true anymore, or at least not to the same degree. But sometimes it's that the people who originally believed that stereotype and made it popular made it based on false information or simply wanted to believe it was true because it benefited them, like men believing that men were more intelligent than women. Sometimes we even use false stereotypes to our advantage, even when we don't believe them and in fact hate that they exist. For example, I'm perfectly capable of managing my finances, but my husband is more of a numbers guy, and to be honest, it does come more easily to him. So he looks after the money. Not because I'm not capable, I could certainly do it, but it's easier for him. Now, if he weren't specifically a math guy, then I'd probably do the finances. But here's my point. A couple years ago, someone came to the door trying to sell something, insurance or something financial related. I can't remember. And I dislike being in those situations. I get uncomfortable having to reject a door-to-door salesman, as they can be quite pushy. So I did the easiest thing that I could think of and said, "Oh, my husband looks after that, thanks though." Now, I could have said, "I'm not interested, thanks," or "this isn't a good time," but I knew that it would shut the whole conversation down if he just thought that it was useless to talk to me because my husband was the only one who knew anything about our finances. And of course, I didn't stand there and explain that, "Well, you see, I'm actually pretty smart and have a PhD and just don't find it as easy to work with numbers as my husband does since he's studied math at a graduate level, so that's why he does the finances, but I do plenty of other intellectual things." So I was annoyed with myself after that because it was just so easy to play into the stereotype of men being better at math and the husband controlling the finances and the money in order to get out of that uncomfortable situation. But it just reinforced the stereotypes to that salesman, which isn't something I'm proud of. And I'm sure that if you think really hard, you'll be able to come up with some examples like that too, where you've used stereotypes to your advantage. Week 4, Chapter 5. I dislike Freud. I really do. This may seem like an odd way to start this week's video, but it's true and relevant. Freud had a really large impact on psychology and psychiatry, and while some of his ideas were okay, like defense mechanisms, things like denial, projection, etc., most of it was, frankly, junk. He didn't think very highly of women, although oddly he trained his daughter Anna Freud to be a psychoanalyst as well, and some of his ideas were downright damaging to women, and still are damaging to women. I covered this in one of the slides for this week, and it does actually come up later in the course as well, but I want to mention it here because I feel so strongly about it. I study sexuality and romantic relationships, so have come across plenty of times the idea of different types of orgasms, and the idea that some types of orgasms are better than others. Many women feel inadequate if they can't orgasm just from penetration alone, and many men feel inadequate if they can't please their partner just through penetration. The idea that she might need extra help through clitoral stimulation, perhaps even through the use of a vibrator, is difficult for a lot of men and women to accept. But where did these ideas come from? Why should clitoral stimulation be somehow less than vaginal stimulation when it comes to an orgasm? Well, this is Freud's doing. As you'll learn, he suggested that young girls need to shift their focus from the clitoris, which was fine for masturbation when they were discovering their bodies, to the vagina, which is the only acceptable way to orgasm as a mature, and presumably married heterosexual, adult woman. But of course, both boys and men could focus on their penis for sexual pleasure, so that was fine.